Welcome back to Kitchen Wisdom. Come on in, pour yourself a cup of coffee, and let's chat about something that sounds fancy but really isn't: activating dry yeast. It's one of those steps that can either make your dough rise like a happy little cloud or sit there staring at you like, not today. You know, yeast has a personality. It's like that friend who shows up late to brunch, needs the right temperature, the right drink, and a little encouragement to get going. But once it's happy, it brings the life to the party. So let's start with what yeast is. Basically, it's a living organism, a tiny fungus that eats sugar and releases carbon dioxide. Sounds kind of gross when you put it that way, right? But I like to think of it more as a kitchen pet that you feed and nurture until it rewards you with fluffy, delicious bread. That gas it releases is what makes your dough rise, gives your bread those soft air pockets, and fills your kitchen with that glorious smell that makes everyone suddenly appear for just one slice. And if you've ever wondered where yeast comes from, no, it's not magic. Yeast has been around forever. Ancient Egyptians were baking with it thousands of years ago. They probably didn't call it Saccharomyces cerevisiae, but they definitely knew that leaving dough out in a warm spot made it come alive. It's one of those kitchen miracles that connects us straight to history, one bubbly bowl at a time. Another fun fact: yeast doesn't just help bread rise, it's also the reason we have beer and wine. So technically, every loaf you bake has a little party spirit inside. No wonder it's so uplifting. There are a few types of yeast out there: active dry yeast, instant yeast, and fresh yeast. Most of us home bakers deal with active dry yeast, which needs a little wake-up call before jumping into action. Instant yeast, on the other hand, is that overachiever who skips the warm-up. It can go straight into your flour. But today, we're talking about how to properly wake up that sleepy, active, dry yeast. Yeast loves warmth, not too hot, not too cold. Think cozy bath, not hot tub. Around 100 degrees Fahrenheit to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, about 38 to 43 degrees Celsius, is the sweet spot. If it's too cold, your yeast will sit there like it's on strike. Too hot, and you'll end up with what I call yeast soup, a sad, bubbly graveyard of what could have been a beautiful loaf. Here's my trick. If the water feels just barely warm to your wrist, like baby bath water, it's probably perfect. No thermometer needed. And if you're more of a visual learner, I actually have a video called How to Test Yeast, where I show exactly what properly activated yeast looks like: foam, bubbles, and all. You can find it on my YouTube channel at Arina Photography. Now you'll want to give that yeast a snack, usually a teaspoon of sugar. That's breakfast for your yeast, and it's what helps wake it up. Stir it gently and then sprinkle your yeast over the top. Don't dump it in all at once. Just let it settle in slowly. After about 5 to 10 minutes, your yeast should start to look foamy or bubbly. That's it saying, I'm alive. Let's bake. If you don't see bubbles after 10 minutes, something went wrong. Maybe the water was too hot, too cold, or the yeast was old. Yeast is picky. It's not your fault. One time, I tried activating yeast that had been sitting in my pantry since, well, let's just say it was before my daughter learned how to skate. Spoiler alert, it didn't foam. That dough could have doubled as a paperweight. Moral of the story: always check expiration dates and store your yeast properly. Cool, dry place, or better yet, in the fridge or freezer if you bake often. I keep mine in a small airtight jar labeled with the date I opened it. Nothing fancy, just a black Sharpie and some tape. All right, let's say your yeast isn't foaming. Don't panic. We've all been there. Just toss it and start over. It's cheaper than wasting a whole batch of dough. Use fresh yeast, make sure your water's the right temperature, and maybe add a little more sugar to tempt it back to life. If it still doesn't work, it might be the brand. I've had my fair share of hit or miss packets. Once I bought a bulk bag online because it was cheaper. Turns out it expired the same year my daughter started kindergarten. Lesson learned, sometimes bulk deal just means big disappointment. Once your yeast is nice and bubbly, pour it into your flour mixture right away. That foam is full of energy, and you don't want to waste it. I usually make sure my flour and other ingredients are room temperature too. Cold eggs or milk can slow yeast down. A little personal tip, I like to mix the dough with a wooden spoon for the first minute or two before switching to my mixer. It lets me feel how the dough is coming together. You can almost sense if it's too dry or too sticky. It's like learning the language of dough. Once you get it, you'll just know when it's right. If you're ready to put your newly activated yeast to work, I've got a few favorite recipes on my blog you can try. My soft dinner rolls are the perfect beginner recipe. They come out pillowy and golden every time. Or, if you're in the mood for something sweet, check out my cinnamon rolls with cream cheese frosting, which fill the whole kitchen with that irresistible bakery smell. And, for the holidays, you can't go wrong with my classic brioche bread. Rich, buttery, and show-stopping. All of these recipes use the same yeast activation method we talked about today, so you can see the process in action step by step. Let's talk about the most common mistake. Salt. Salt is yeast's frenemy. You need it for flavor, but if you dump it directly on top of your yeast while mixing, it'll kill it. Always mix salt with your flour first, so it's evenly distributed before your yeast joins the party. And here's a fun little trick. If you want to test yeast freshness without making dough, just mix a teaspoon of sugar, 1/4 cup warm water, and 2 1/4 teaspoons yeast. That's 1 packet. If it bubbles within 10 minutes, you're golden. Oh, and one last thing, patience. Yeast doesn't like being rushed. If your kitchen is cold, your dough will take longer to rise. I sometimes place my covered bowl in the oven with the light on, no heat, just the light, to create a warm little spa for the dough. Works every time. So, there you have it. How to activate dry yeast without fear, frustration, or panic. It's really just about giving it the right environment and a little care. Think of it as baking's version of small talk. You're just getting to know your yeast before you two create something wonderful together. If you take one thing away today, it's this. Don't let yeast intimidate you. We've all had our flat loaves and brick rolls. The beauty of baking is that even when it doesn't rise perfectly, it still smells like home. If you want to see how I activate yeast step by step, or watch me turn that foam into a gorgeous batch of rolls, visit my blog and YouTube channel at Arina Photography. I'll leave all the links and tools I mentioned in the podcast notes. Now, go wake up that yeast, brew another cup of coffee, and bake something delicious. Because the only thing better than warm bread is sharing it with someone who appreciates the effort, and maybe a little laughter along the way.